So this is my first trip up to the cabin in 2020. Snow's all gone. Start bringing things in soon. First off, I have to move the front steps over next to the front door. I move them back because the snow slides off the roof in the winter and it forms a mound in the front and back at least 2 feet higher than the surrounding snow. Actually, that's what's left over of that snow pile. That's the snow that's left. So I move those steps back. I have them on some 2x4s so I can slide them up to the front door. So we'll do that first, and then we'll bring in our supplies. Looks like the solar panel made it through the winter in one piece. I just spin around here. There's a truck all loaded up. Alright, so I got the front steps in place. So I take a quick look inside here. So I don't hear any animals. It's a good sign. Kitchen looks good. I don't see any sign of rodents. That's good. So start unloading the truck. So the next thing on the agenda today is to pump water from the well down into my storage tanks in the basement. I don't know if you can see them. Maybe you can hear the water going in them. So I've started in one tank. And the process is to get out this garden hose. This is actually a potable water hose I bought at Walmart a couple years ago. It was like $20 a length. It was really cheap. It's for potable water. And then I bring my battery back here, and my pump, it's just a bilge pump, 12-volt bilge pump, which you probably can't see right now. It's down in there. That little yellow thing, yellow and red, that's the pump. So I hook it up here, and I have to prime the line because it doesn't like pumping that distance. So I fill the hose up, I let it run down here in this area until the hose is full, and I put my finger over the end and I drop it in the window there, and then scurry down the ladder and put the end of the hose into the tank. So I do this a couple times a year, try and keep the tanks full. It's better than hauling water. Eventually what I might do is get a large 1,500 2,000 gallon black tank and put it up there in the woods, and then I can just fill it up from the well here, and I won't have to worry about running out. I've got 500 gallons of water in the cellar. Generally in August the well runs dry, so I have to live with that amount of water. So having a bigger tank up in the woods wouldn't be a bad idea. And of course this year I'm going to get my solar system running with my sine wave inverter, so I'll have 120 volts so I can run a bigger pump, which will make this process easier. So you can see the solar panel survived the winter. Everything survived. Chimney's good. I gotta spread around the rest of this mulch this week. Okay, so I am done pumping for today. I've got about 125 or so gallons of water in that first tank. Second tank is going to stay dry right now. I'm going to be plumbing the outlet of the tank in a more permanent fashion in a couple weeks, so I'll do a video on that. But for now, that'll get me through this week. So I'm going to close that window up there where the hose came in through, and then I'm going to screw on this cap on the top of the tank here. Actually, I leave it a little bit loose so it can vent, breathe. So now up to the kitchen to hook up the piping there. So the last thing I have to do here for the water is connect this stub to the hot water line. Whoops, underneath here. I don't have hot water yet, so I just put this on, keep the water from pouring on the floor. The cold water line's already hooked up. I leave that hooked up, I just drain it in the cellar in the fall. So this should be it, and then we'll test for leaks, and we should be ready to go. Just got the fire going. I'm going to cook on top of it tonight some soup. So I need to get that going well first. Yeah, soup's on the stove. Almost ready. Well, it's mid-April and it's still cold up here. Temperature at night's getting down to freezing. So, getting tired of staying cold. So I decided to try and finish the insulating. I had done all the easy stuff before. The roof was done, I'm guessing, 2 years ago. And all the walls where they're 16-inch bays, they're insulated. But now I'm working on the ones that are not 16 inches on center, like in the kitchen here. And under the sink. So I've got my insulation rolled out and I'm cutting it. Also in the corners, I did 2 corners. I have to do the other 2. Insulate those. And there's some spots up here. I don't know if you can see it with the backlighting, but between the windows there's some gaps that need to be insulated. And then on the end walls, you really can't see that, but I got some spots up there that I have to insulate as well. So that's been the project for the last 2 days. I'm cutting fiberglass to fit into the odd openings in the wall, like on either side of the window there that are not 16 inches on center exactly. So I just cut this to length, which is 10 feet. That's how high the walls are. I've got 7 feet, 7.5 feet here, and then a 2-foot knee wall on top to give me more room in the loft. So it works out to 10 feet plus the loft joist here. So now I have to trim this to 8 inches wide. I've seen different ways of doing this, where you hold it up against the cavity one side and then you score down the middle of the stud. Have not found that to work best for me, so what I do is I have a straight edge, mark where I want with utility knife, score it, and then cut deep. I've got a backing board here, so I'm not cutting into my subfloor, but I cut deep through all the fiberglass, which should give me a clean cut. So we'll do this all the way down. So there you have it. One piece exactly 8 inches wide to go into the bay there in the wall. So now I'll put on my protective gear and hang this up. So I got my protective gear on. The hat is to keep falling shreds of fiberglass off my head and my neck. Works pretty well. So I got to feed this behind the counter first. And then I have to take my scissors, cut out a spot where the wire goes through. Then cut out a spot for the outlet box. why insulating takes so long. Of course, things are never easy. This one corner that I have to insulate, I had all kinds of junk in here. I have to take these 2x6s out. Those are for my Murphy bed project. And then in this corner I had to install another board here so I could trim out this wall, so I'd have something to nail to. But of course up here, which is being blocked by those 2x6s right there, I forgot to continue it up. So I've got to put in a 2x6 all the way up to the top, so I'll have something to nail my interior wall to when I'm done. So that's going to get done first. Then, so this is two 10-foot pieces of fiberglass going in, and the opposite corner has one, so that's 3/4 of a roll of fiberglass just there in that small area. And in this corner I had my gun safe bolted to this stud here, so it was blocking that corner where I have to insulate, so I had to unbolt it. Now I'll put the insulation in that bay, staple that in, then move the gun safe back over and bolt it back in. Never easy. So I'm going to start today by cleaning out this mess against the wall. Some portion of it will go down into the basement, some up into the loft, but I want to get that kitchen stove up against the wall into its approximate position so I can hook that up. And this trash can and stuff that can go down cellar. I'm actually thinking of a butcher block counter, and if I buy a 10-foot piece I can cut 2 feet off and put it underneath the window there. It's slightly more than 2 feet, but I can move the stove over. So this whole thing is 8 feet long right now. Success! I got that area cleaned up, got the stove moved back up against the wall where it's going to be. Don't know if you can see it here, but there's a outline on the floor just in front of that bucket, which is a trap door to the cellar. So that will be a project for another day, but eventually I'd like to have that hinged on one side, on the left side, so I can fold it up against the wall, have a set of stairs down toward this cellar, so I don't have to go outside through the bulkhead door. So, sense of accomplishment. So I decided to make some shelves in the basement. Simple 2x4 supports with 2x4 bracing, and then some sheets of 1/2-inch plywood in between. So I'm just laying out where I want the shelves right now. I've got close to 8-foot ceiling down here in the basement, which is nice. So the top shelf there is going to be at 6 feet, and the bottom is 1.5 feet above the floor, so I spaced the others out evenly. So I just finished cutting those, and I finished cutting the 1/2-inch plywood down the middle, the sheet, 2 sheets. So now we're going to start putting it together. So here's the first end built. Came out pretty good. Working on the next 2 now. The sheets of plywood ripped to 2 feet wide. That's what I'll use for shelves. Gotta clean up this mess down here. Well, got them up. Got 3 shelves on. Gotta pop the 4th shelf on top. Just taking this video now in case that blocks the light somewhat. So everything went fairly smoothly. Got to add some new additional screws. Got to square things up, but I think we're going to have a successful pair of shelves on our hands. So this is the start of my Murphy bed project. I laid this all out on paper, but it never hurts to physically make a mock-up and make sure I did things correctly. So I am going to tack these 2x6s on all 4 sides of the mattress, then put the mattress away so I'll know exactly how big it is. And then the black hinge there I'll put up against or in the wall. I'm actually going to come over about 6 inches to the left and tie into that stud there, because the over here is where the base of the attic stair comes down. You can see the up there. So I want to leave enough room over there so there's some space. The stair will actually open where it is now, but I'm going to try and bring it over to the next stud over. And then I got to figure out whether I'm going to go inside the stud or outside the stud with the hinges. So we'll mock that up physically first before I cut anything. Well, I've gone as far as I can this trip on the Murphy bed project. This is what it looks like so far. Those spacers are just to hold the sideboards at the right distance apart. So I was attaching the hinge to this board right here, and I get one side attached, and then I realized there's no way I can use screws to attach these hinges because it's blind and I don't have access with the drill. So this is what it'll look like. This piece here will go get bolted to the stud, and figuring out the math here, the critical dimension is the axis of this. Just get this out of the way here. The axis of the hinge here. So the measurement from the center of that hinge to the end of the bed, added to the height of this support above ground, has to equal exactly the ceiling height or less. So when I actually install this, it'll be about 16 inches up off the ground, and that should give me the proper clearance. But you can see, hopefully, this hinge here, I've got 2 screws in, and then I realized I don't have access to this portion here. There's no way I can get the screw in there. So what I need to do is I need to get bolts. It's like a 1/2 inch bolt, carriage bolts, that will go through 1.5 inch wood, and then I can put the bolts in both sides initially, bolt wide inside in, and then take this other piece and bolt to that. Then I'll attach this to the wall stud, and that should give me what I need. The other dimension is how far out on this board the hinge is going to be, because the mattress comes 4 or 5 inches above this, so when it comes up into the wall I need that space, and then I need space for my interior tongue and groove pine, and then maybe 1 inch to spare. So I gotta calculate that when I determine where to put the hinge on this board here. So we'll do that next time, but I like the way it's coming out so far, and by sheer luck these studs are in the right location for this piece on each side to join flush. I don't have to put a spacer in. That's what I was worried about, because there's going to be a lot of load on this with the mattress on these 2 hinges, and I just want to make it beefy enough so it supports everything. So this is the lake, 10-minute drive from the cabin. There's a boat ramp here, well, actually 2 boat ramps down into the water. There's a dock here in the middle, which they'll be putting in before Memorial Day. But get a view of the mountains. Those are the docks up there. They take them out in the winter because of the ice, and they'll get attached here and go out into the water. It's a nice setup. So here's the beach, water. It's looking toward the west. And back down to the east. Mid-April. No sunbathers here today. It's nice, they've graded this so you can walk out about 40 feet and the water gradually gets deeper, maybe to 8 feet. Sometimes I come down here at sunset, watch the sunset behind those 2 hills. A little quick walking tour here. No damage. in the winter. It's the project for May and June. Get the back of the siding on. Eventually spread out my rest of my wood chips. Get my other solar panel up. Last fall, I dug a trench here. This water runs down off the hillside and over to the left is my septic field, and I don't want it to wash out. I mean, I've got some grass, some weeds, some moss growing there now with some roots, but I try and divert water around it. So I dug out this trench here in the fall, and you can see it's collecting water now and draining it off to the side down the hill. It's very wet up here, and it will drain like this until the end of May. Now you have to spread out some more wood chips on the far end there just before the logs. I didn't get to that last year. Cover up the bare ground so I don't lose soil with the rains. Grass, the second plot, the grass took last fall. Hopefully it'll come back. That first plot, I seeded in the fall, but nothing came up. I'll seed it again the next time I come up here. But all that dirt there came from the trench that I dug. It's the east side of the cabin, the panel.